Imagine buying a $2,000 car from someone you've known for 20 years, only to have the car start having problems the very same night. That's what Genea Knight said happened after buying the vehicle from a longtime friend's family. But returning the car didn't end the problem. Instead, the two women ended up fighting over how much money had actually been refunded. One side said $1,200. The other said only $100. Then came a bank record showing a $1,200 withdrawal and an audio recording that Judge Judy wanted to hear. By the end of the case, the judge had made her decision. And the $2,000 car wasn't the only thing that was lost. A 20-year friendship was about to come to an end over a used car. The case involved Shaquita Thomas, who was suing her former friend, Genea Knight. Thomas wanted either the return or the value of the car, along with towing and diagnostic fees. But Knight had a very different version of what had happened. The dispute began when Knight needed a car. Thomas knew that her daughter had a car available for sale, so she helped arrange the transaction between her daughter and Knight. Thomas and Knight had known each other for more than 20 years, so this was not a deal between complete strangers. There was already a long history of friendship between them. The agreed purchase price was $2,000. Knight paid the $2,000, received the car, and the title was signed over to her. At that point, the transaction appeared to be complete. Knight had the vehicle, she had paid the agreed price, and she had the title. But according to Knight, the problems began almost immediately. The sale took place on February 9th. Knight said that by around 7 o'clock that same evening, she was already having trouble with the car. She described the vehicle as jerking hard when she tried to pull away. That meant the dispute was no longer simply about the purchase of an older used car. The two women now had to deal with what would happen after the buyer claimed the vehicle was experiencing problems almost immediately after the sale. Knight said she contacted Thomas's family about the problem. Thomas later explained that on the 5th day, she called Knight to check how the car was running. According to Thomas, she offered Knight an opportunity to return the vehicle. Thomas said she told Knight that she would give her back the full $2,000 if Knight was not satisfied with the car. But Thomas claimed Knight told her that she was fine with the vehicle. Knight disagreed with that version. According to Knight, she had already reported the problem with the car and was trying to deal with the situation. The disagreement over what had been said and promised eventually became one of the central issues in the case. There was also an important question about the amount of money that was supposed to be returned. According to Thomas's account, the agreement eventually involved returning $1,900 rather than the full $2,000. The reason was that Knight had driven the car, so $100 would be kept. Knight disputed how the money was actually handled. At some point, the car was picked up by AAA. Knight said she received a message at around 4 o'clock in the morning telling her that AAA was going to pick up the vehicle in the morning. She allowed the car to be picked up. The vehicle was then taken to a shop. According to Knight, the car remained at the shop for about 7 days, from one Monday to the following Monday. During that period, she said she repeatedly tried to contact Thomas but received no response. Knight eventually called the shop herself to find out whether any work had been done on the vehicle. This created another question. If Thomas had agreed to take the car back and refund Knight's money, why was Knight still dealing with the vehicle being in the shop? Knight explained that she wanted to retrieve the car because she wanted to protect her investment. But the money dispute was still unresolved. Knight claimed she had received only $100. Thomas's side told a different story. Thomas's sister, Shaquita Thomas, was brought into the courtroom because she had information about the financial transaction. Judge Judy asked her directly about the money. Shaquita said she had given Knight $1,200. She explained that her sister had withdrawn $1,200 from the bank and that she had picked up the money from her. Judge Judy wanted to know whether there was proof of that withdrawal. Shaquita produced bank information showing the $1,200 withdrawal. But Judge Judy immediately recognized an important distinction. A bank record showing that $1,200 had been withdrawn did not automatically prove that the money had actually been handed to Knight. Knight made exactly that point. Simply withdrawing $1,200 did not mean that Knight had received $1,200. According to Shaquita, however, the money had been given to her sister so that it could be delivered after Thomas finished court in Lancaster, where she resided. Knight maintained that she had received only $100. At this point, the case became a question of credibility. Who actually received the $1,200? And what exactly had the women agreed to? There was also another piece of evidence, an audio recording. Thomas's side said there was an audio recording in which Knight admitted to receiving or discussing $1,200. Judge Judy wanted to hear it. The recording became important because it could potentially clarify what Knight herself had said about the money. Knight acknowledged the statement but explained that she had been angry when she made the recording. She argued that she had not actually meant that she had been given $1,200. Instead, she said she meant that Thomas was saying she would give her $1,200 and that Thomas's daughter, Champagne, would give her the remaining $800. Knight explained that there had been a discussion involving a Ford Contour that Champagne had purchased and money that had supposedly been given to her. According to Knight's explanation, the plan was that Thomas would return $1,200 and Champagne would return $800, bringing the total refund to $2,000. But because $100 was being kept, the actual amount involved in the proposed refund was $1,900. Judge Judy focused closely on the wording of the recording. The problem for Knight was that the statement, as presented, said, "You only gave me $1,200. Knight explained that she had meant something else. But Judge Judy pointed out that what someone later says they meant can be different from what they actually said. The wording mattered. The case was therefore no longer simply about two former friends giving different stories. There was documentary evidence of a $1,200 bank withdrawal, and there was an audio recording containing a statement about $1,200. Judge Judy also looked at the situation involving the car itself. Knight had the vehicle. She had originally paid $2,000 for it. The car had been picked up by AAA and, according to Knight, was not running when AAA took it on February 23rd. But the title had never been signed back over. Judge Judy asked directly whether Knight had ever signed the title back. The answer was no. That became another important fact. Knight still had the car and the title, while Thomas's side had not simply taken possession of the vehicle and completed the transaction in reverse. Judge Judy also addressed the nature of the original sale. The car was approximately 13 or 14 years old, and Judge Judy emphasized that used cars of that age do not automatically come with guarantees or warranties. That point mattered because Knight believed the condition of the vehicle should affect the transaction. But Judge Judy did not accept the idea that the buyer automatically had a right to return an older used vehicle simply because problems developed. The question was what the parties had actually agreed to do after the problem appeared. Thomas had apparently offered to take the car back and refund money, but the parties disagreed about what happened next and how much money was actually returned. Knight also brought up additional expenses, including diagnostic and storage fees and other costs connected to the vehicle. But Judge Judy did not award those additional amounts. Instead, she focused on the part of the dispute that she found supported by the evidence. There was another issue involving the counterclaim. Knight wanted compensation for additional expenses, including taxi-related costs, because the car had stopped working. But Judge Judy rejected that counterclaim. The final decision was straightforward. Judge Judy entered judgment for the plaintiff, Shaquita Thomas, in the amount of $1,200. The counterclaim was dismissed. That meant the courtroom dispute ended with a $1,200 judgment, rather than an award for the additional expenses Knight had requested. But financially, the case was only part of the story. The bigger loss appeared to be the relationship between the two women. These were not strangers who had entered into a business transaction and simply disagreed afterward. They had known each other for more than 20 years. And now, according to their own statements after the judgment, that friendship was over. Knight said that Thomas still had her money and believed she should have received the full amount back. Thomas expressed disappointment that a friendship lasting more than 20 years had been ruined over a car. The case therefore ended with a judgment, but no real reconciliation. One side believed the other had failed to return the money she was owed. The other believed she had already done what she had agreed to do and had even provided evidence supporting the $1,200 payment. Judge Judy's decision ultimately came down to the evidence presented in court. The bank withdrawal showed that $1,200 had been taken out. The audio recording provided another piece of evidence concerning the $1,200. The car and title remained part of the dispute, and the competing accounts of the refund made credibility especially important. In the end, Judge Judy ruled for Thomas for $1,200 and dismissed Knight's counterclaim. A $2,000 used car sale had started the disagreement. A disputed refund had made it worse. A bank withdrawal and an audio recording became crucial evidence. And after more than 2 decades of friendship, the relationship between the two women appeared to be finished. What began as one friend helping another find a car ended with both sides standing in court, telling very different versions of what happened, and Judge Judy deciding which part of the evidence mattered most.